Hey everybody, Pastor Chris here. Just wanted to share with you our 30-day devotional and small group study on Ephesians that it is now available at thefollowproject.com. This is a really special work that God put on our heart, not only for the purpose of biblical literacy, but also to speak about how the body of Christ needs to be unified. And Paul puts that into such beautiful expression through the book of Ephesians. And so we have put together a 30-day small group study, but you can also do it from a personal devotional standpoint. And this is designed along with videos to help you come closer to the heart of God in your day-to-day walk. So we hope that it blesses you. You can check it out at thefollowproject.com. Thanks. We're going to turn it over to Pastor Mark now for the Sunday message.
So the reality is making a decision to not graduate high school was another one of those moments where it could have been a disaster, right? I mean, education is so important in the world that we live in, especially certain types of, if you will, certification that, has a diploma behind it or something like that. And so it could have been a devastating decision. Well, again, grace of God. Looking back, hindsight, it wasn't. But at the time, it was a pretty bad decision. So I end up in San Diego. It's 78, early 78, maybe January. I think it's January 78. I land in San Diego and begin my time in San Diego for the next year and a half, living with my dad, doing the business, learning about who he really is, learning more about my dad than I was ready to hear at that time. There was a woman living with him when I got to San Diego. So he picks me up at the airport when I fly in. I'm flying into San Diego Airport. He picks me up. And on the way back, his son, I got to tell you something. And it's like, and now my parents had just gone through a divorce, maybe in the last year and a half, right? And he goes, I need to tell you something. And I'm like, yeah, Dad, what's up? I'm just trying to be, right? Because I'm just happy to be out of the way that I was. I don't want to stay in that mess, right? And he goes, I've got a girlfriend. And I'm like, that's awesome, Dad. That's wonderful. I know that's important. I'm glad for you. I'm happy for you. He goes, well, I just wanted to let you know that I have a girlfriend because she's living with me and that's where you're going to live. And so we're all going to be living together. I just want you to be aware of that and not be surprised, And I'm like, oh, okay. Being clueless, I didn't ask any questions, right? I'm a 17-year-old kid. I'm not even 18 yet. And I'm not asking any questions because I'm just happy to be out, Finally, I'm out. And I get home, and of course, she's there, and I meet her, and it's Phyllis. She's her nickname's Sweetie. Very nice lady, and great. This is awesome. And of course, my brother, being my brother, John, first chance he gets, he pulls me aside and goes, they've been together for like 18 years. And now my parents just got a divorce of roughly 19 plus years. So that means she was around for a very long part of that. And now I have context for some of the moments that I experienced as a kid when my mom was beat up. And there was obviously a fight. My dad was gone, but my mom was physically hurt. Oh, these things start to gel, right? These memories of curiosity and misunderstanding, maybe even confusion, start to clear up. And that's an important pattern, this confusion pattern, this thing we call confusion. And this is only recent that I've actually been able to articulate this, is that confusion is simply an indicator that there's more, which is, if you remember, one of the 4 pillars, is there more? Confusion is the indicator or the evidence that, yes, there is more, and that means you have to press to find out what that more is. And so, even though I didn't realize it at the time, I was learning a valuable life lesson of embracing confusion in such a way as to leverage it and use it for a positive outcome. And so that was another thing that I learned that was, and like I said, until very recently, I couldn't even articulate, I just did. It was just part of what I operated under, my process or whatever you want to call it, my personality. And so we're there. And I'm there, and we're doing San Diego and all the things that go on with being in California at that time, which was a lot better than it is as of late. It is a lot better. It was beautiful, and beaches, and everything was outdoors. You did everything outdoors. It was a cool experience coming from where I came from. Weather's very temperate, very moderate, right? 70, 72 degrees average year round. So not like the swings that we had, growing up in temperature and weather. And so went through that basically just being clueless. I was just a clueless kid, thinking I was actually smarter than I was, that hubris that comes with being free from what I considered to be the bondage of my life. And little did I know I was carrying every bit of bondage with me to no matter where I went. And I had to learn that, and that took decades to learn as well. So the high point of San Diego is how it ended. So we were Colorado Prime Meats. We had rented a freezer, and I'm talking freezers the size of buildings. These are big walk-in, drive-in freezers, and coolers, because that's where we had our meat business. And we also sold food packages, so that's why the freezers were important to us. And so Dad asked permission to paint our business sign on the building, and he knew the guy from way back in the business days, in the old meat days, Lou Scudder. And Scudder, I think is the way he pronounced it. And 301 West G Street isn't even there anymore. And he said, sure. So my dad put the sign up. Well, these guys who were charlatans out of LA came down with these frozen boxes of beef that weren't beef, whatever they were rancid. And they were invading the market space. And they rented freezer space from Lou because he had some of the largest freezers in town. And that's what they needed because their meat was frozen. Well, needless to say, these guys flooded the market with bad meat, and the news got a hold of it. The media got a hold of it. And so, of course, they're outside our building, and they're filming, and they're not talking about best beef. They're talking about best beef. They're saying the best beef, best beef, best beef. That's what the name of the company was. But they're showing Colorado Prime Meats every single night, twice or three times a night. I think it was twice. I think it was the 6 o'clock news and the 11 o'clock news for like a week. Well, you can imagine what that did to our business. It was gone. And we're like, Dad, you got to do something about this. What are you going to do? He goes, you can't fight City Hall, son. I didn't understand at the time what he was saying. There's some things you can't fight. You can't win that battle. It's better to take what you have and just move on, because there's some battles you can't win. It costs you more than you ever wanted to spend. And that goes back to a fundamental business principle. Your first loss is your cheapest loss. So when you suffer a loss, you have to make the decision, am I okay with this loss? Because the next one's going to be more. If I chase this dog, this loss is going to grow. And that was the thing that now I look back and I go, wow, that was a life lesson he was trying to teach me in that moment. So we ended up leaving San Diego quite abruptly. My uncle had purchased lumber from Weyerhaeuser in British Columbia, Canada. So now we're going to go be lumberjacks. Here it is, 79, and we're going to be lumberjacks. It's mid 79. And off I go, because that's what I do. I'm part of the caravan. I just pack up the camels and off we go. And so off to British Columbia, Canada we go, and we spent the next, 9, 10 months up there. I don't remember exactly how much, maybe it's a little bit longer. But, and we were out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, we're due west of Vancouver, but it's in the middle of nowhere. It's on the other side of the mountain range from Vancouver. And it's near, if you want to look it up, Braylorn Mine, which is a very famous gold mine that they pulled a lot of gold out of. We were just a little bit in from that. The road came in and went through us to get to Braylorn. So we were like in between there. I don't remember the name of the town we stayed in. There was a hotel and we rented rooms, yada, yada, yada. And, we ate there, we drank there, and we slept there. And so that was my life, just being a Bedouin, and being I'd say lumberjack, but they just didn't want me getting hurt. So they put me in places where I couldn't get hurt because it's a dangerous job, very dangerous job. But so did that. That didn't end so well because as it turns out, the way my father and uncle liked to operate, they came into Canada and didn't declare anything as far as vehicles and equipment, and they basically became illegal aliens in Canada. And so one day I woke up and they go, you got to pack your stuff. Okay, where are we going? You're going home. I'm going home. Yes, you're going home. Where's home? Omaha. You're going home to your mother. Omaha, Mom, what's up? You're just going. Oh, okay. So I pack my stuff and off I go. And it takes a while to figure out what happened. Well, my dad got thrown in jail. They grabbed my dad, the RCMP grabbed my dad and threw him in jail because he's an illegal alien. They caught him at it, red-handed. And they were going to prosecute the crap out of him. And they were going to get everything. That's their mindset. They're just going to take you until you bleed nothing. And little did they know that, my dad and uncle were about 12 steps ahead of them. They took my dad to, fingerprint him and all that stuff. My uncle went to the bank. He went to the bank, closed the account, and had them put it on a cashier's check. And what most people don't know, and then he took that cashier's check and he went to another bank and he said, here, cash this. And they did. Now give me a cashier's check in my name. People don't know this about cashier's checks, but you can stop payment on a cashier's check. A bank can stop payment on a cashier's check. Well, guess what? That check's already been cashed. You can stop payment on all you want. But it just isn't going to happen. And so they were way ahead of him on this. They were already packing up the mill. When my brother took me across the border to get me out and send me off to Omaha, they confiscated some of that stuff. I actually got out another way. My brother flew out. Someone else took me out. And I don't remember how I got out, but somebody took me out independent of all that. So I missed all the drama. And so they basically had to sell to warehouses. They sold that. They took the equipment and packed it up and moved it to Northern California. My uncle's plan was to paint it and sell it, right? Make some money off it. And so he did that. Got my dad out, paid the bail, got my dad out of the jail. Already had the check, and it was in the suitcase. They put it in my brother's suitcase. And so it gets my brother, they pay bail for my dad, get him out of jail, go to the border. And of course they stop him, because they want to talk to him, find out what's going on, yada, yada, yada. And this is where they confiscate the Bronco. Because they realize, this vehicle has no entry point. So this is an illegal vehicle. And so they confiscate it. And either my dad or my uncle just turn to my brother at that point and they say, grab the bag and start walking, because you can walk across the border as well. And you start walking and you don't stop till you cross that line. That's what they said to him. Well, he didn't know what was in the bag. That was all the money. It was in that check. And so he grabs the bag, being John, and he starts walking. And they start yelling, hey, you, come back here. He goes, and he just ignored him. He just ignored him. And he just kept walking. Get the line, cross that line, that white line, And so the way he tells the story, because I wasn't there, he just ignores him and keeps walking. He isn't running, can't run, but you can walk as fast as you can walk. And so he did. And of course, by this time, the American side, they're paying attention because these guys are yelling, stop, stop, stop. And so the way he tells the story, he puts his foot on the white line and the guy grabs him like this. And he goes, stop. And the Americans are right there and they go, let him go. Sir, are you an American citizen? Yes, I am. Let him go. This is the way he tells the story. And so he crossed and he had the money. And then, of course, they came over afterwards and we had to pay to get the Bronco out and all that stuff. But so basically, I was an illegal alien and I was kicked out of Canada, though my family was the ones who did it for me. So I have that in my history. But that was my wake-up call. I was tired of being a Bedouin. I was tired of not having control of my life. I had determined by that point I was going to be the champion of my life, the king of my life. I'm going to control my destiny. Yeah. So what do? So I figured out a way to do that. And it took a little bit of time. That was 80, right? That was late 79, early 80 when all that happened. So I'm in Omaha and I discover, this is crazy. My dad mentions, you should really think about being a computer programmer, because Phyllis's daughter went to this school and she became a computer programmer. She now works for Mutual of Omaha and makes a lot of money. And Mutual of Omaha is a very big employer there in Omaha, And so that made sense. I'm like, yeah, let me look into this, see what it's all about. And so I look it up. And of course, I find an ad, TV ad comes on, and it's that school. And it's got this guy, and he's in this white shirt with dark, thin tie, and he's rolling his sleeves up, those long sleeve shirts we used to wear. And he's rolling those sleeves up, and the voiceover is, "Are you the kind of person who likes to roll your sleeves up when you get into your work? Well, then, do we have something for you? ECPI, Electronic Computer Programming Institute of Omaha, can train you how to be a computer programmer in 4 different languages in 6 months. Apply for a scholarship." That was the pitch. Scholarship? Why not? I have nothing. I should qualify. Well, little did I know it was a mill, right there, a money mill. They were making money, but they were training people on how to become computer programmers because it was very new at that time. Programming was in its infancy at this time. It was still very young. This is in the 70s, late 70s. And so, sure enough, I went and you had to take an entrance exam, right? You had to go in and take this exam to get in. And so I look at it and I'm like, and they go, just answer it. Just answer the questions. And so I did, and I turned it in, and I looked around the room to see who else was there, and I make a joke, there was a chimpanzee and an orangutan, and we all got in. So that tells you what the entrance exam was like, okay? It wasn't an entrance exam, it was just, do this, you're gonna get in. And sure enough, they sent it to the federal government, and I got a grant. It was a grant. I got a grant because the government was giving these grants to train these programmers because computers were getting ready to explode. So I was on the wave of that. And so I did that 6 months, and I came out fluent in 4 languages. It turns out I was really good at it. Pattern recognition and numbers, 2 strong suits of mine. Not good at math, that's not what I'm saying. But I have this ability to recognize number patterns and also remember number patterns. And so again, it just fed into that DNA of what's inside of me, right? And so this was a really good fit. So I graduated in December of 80. Yeah, it was 1980, December of 1980. And at that time, I don't know if you know much about the computer industry, but there's a company called Texas Instruments. They seem to be having a resurgence now, but Texas Instruments was huge back in the day. They were a microchip manufacturer and all sorts of stuff. They were a big company. And so my vision was, living in Omaha, I'm going to go south to Dallas because that's where they are, and that's a hot market right now, right? And it turned out the way I executed my plan is I made a detour to the west, the southwest, to go to Las Vegas to see family. So I did this big, turn, and instead of just going due south, I turned and ended up in a place I never planned on being in. And this is one of those moments where I start to see in hindsight this pattern of the Lord positioning me, what I call GPS, right? Before GPS was, God positioning system. I see this transition. I didn't see it at the time, but it was clear that his hand was upon me, not going to Dallas, but going to Las Vegas. And it took, a few decades more for that to actually understand, for me to get the understanding of where that was at in that process. So I had my Boss 302, 351 Cleveland, cool car. That was my everyday driver. I knew Vegas was hot, right? Vegas is hot, and it doesn't have air conditioning. So last thing you want is a car with black vinyl interior and no air conditioning in Las Vegas. So I go to my brother Reed and I go, "Hey, would you be willing to buy my Boss on the condition that when I'm ready, because I gotta go make some money, I'll come back and buy it from you. So you can just keep it for me and then I'll take that money." And, my grandpa's already given me a vehicle. My step-grandfather on my father's side had given me a vehicle, a Gran Torino. And of course, I think they paid for it, right? My dad paid for it. But I ended up driving this 4-door Gran Torino, which is not a great car, but a great car. And it's got air conditioning. That was the big thing. And off I go, taking the freeway, driving to Las Vegas, Nevada, leaving Cornshucker City and going to the big city. I'd already been in San Diego, so I knew what city said. But Vegas is a very different city. I think many people have discovered just how different this town is. I didn't understand then the value of coming to Las Vegas and what it would actually mean, not only for my own personal life, but the DNA that was placed inside of me by God and how that would then be activated. And because of that, it would be a blessing not only to myself, but to other people. And so in that moment, that was really where I began to maybe be aware. I can't say I was cognitively aware of it, but I was definitely aware that this is different. Why am I going that far out of my way? Yeah, I want to see them, but really, I just want to go to Dallas and get a job.